How about item 4? Sorry for, I can't speak that. We'll go to item 4, reports from standing committees and the mayor. So budget, labor, and finance. There's nothing to report since our last meeting. Planning, zoning, and building.
The committee has not met recently, but later in this evening's agenda, we will be further discussing the proposed ordinance, which would allow the keeping of chickens in the borough. Also, a draft of the fireworks ordinance is in tonight's packet, and the committee is awaiting review comments from the police department and fire company before moving forward with a recommendation.
All right, any questions? How about public safety?
We met earlier this evening for the meeting, and we were going over the ordinance for the fireworks. We made a few changes. We're going to get it through Kate, and it'll come back. We'll have a few more adjustments on it. Also, we went over the traffic studies for Tomlinson and Blaine Avenue, which will be in the Informer coming up next. We also went over the left-hand turns out of the Ryan's home in Snyder Square. We're going to be working a little bit on that too, because it seems to be that there's a lot more left-hand turns out of there. We also were going over the crosswalks by Vinnie's and out here as well. And
At Mom's.
yeah, we're currently looking into the grants for those.
Okay. Any questions? All right, how about public works, property, and equipment?
The committee has not met since our last meeting, but we do have a meeting scheduled for Monday, May 8th. Look forward to updating you on that.
Utilities?
The committee has not met since our last general meeting here, so I have nothing new to report.
Hurrock?
All right, Hurrock, we met recently, and we are currently looking at expanding the honoring of our businesses and want to also include possible nonprofit and service style businesses that are otherwise not really open to the public. So we're taking a look at that. We are also looking to further on this evening, we have a possible new addition to our Hurrock committee. His name is Johnny Costanza, and he is the owner of Razor Sharp Barbershop. So we are looking to get approval to use him as a replacement for Bob Whitmer. Fall Fest has been scheduled for September 23rd. It's going to be from 3 to 7 p.m. that night. And the Memorial Day Parade is scheduled for Monday, 5/29, starting at 9 a.m.
Any questions? All right, Madam Mayor?
Just a couple of things I want to talk about. As far as the recycling committee, there's talks about allocating the grant money based on the tonnage versus the population. And doing that seems a fairer way, and it would reward the municipalities that have a higher recycling. It should encourage recycling. And it would result in the borough getting just a little bit more money. So that's always good. Also, they are investigating whether changing the commission from an intergovernmental agency to an authority would be advantageous. I think an authority would have more power to enforce, more powers of enforcement, and it might make the ballers be more receptive to and generate and give us better reports. So I would like to see that. And also, as far as the grants are, what goes into determining the amount of the grants, it is based on tonnage, but it's also based on recycling rates. And this is something that was just talked about for the first time at the last meeting. And basically the recycling rates are the total amount of tonnage over the population. So recycling rates are generated for the whole commission and then municipality by municipality. So in 2021, the average recycling rate was 14%. Hatfield Borough's average recycling rate for that time frame was 11%. So we are slightly below the average. And I would like to see us, take some steps and, sort of step up and get that up to at least the average. I think it's important that we do that. And, we could stress more. I know that things have been put on our website saying, recycle, don't forget, we get money and all that. But if we could just maybe step it up a little bit, just to make sure that we can, it results in more money for us, more money for everybody. So I think that's a good thing.
Is that something we can get with Lindsay to put on our social media? and everything?
Yeah, and I was just thinking, I feel like in this informal edition, we switched between stormwater and recycling.
Right.
And I was like, maybe we put a little blurb. I know we're supposed to get it out to print soon, but we said something, just a blurb, like the more you recycle, the more benefits the borough. Something like a small tagline or something for the newsletter, put something on our website. I don't know if you've talked to them.
Yeah, I know Lindsay did this before, like maybe last year sometime.
Okay.
But just again, just to stress to everybody how important it is that we do this. It's to our benefit. Then the junior council person program. The only thing I want to say about that is an article about the program is going to appear in the next edition of the Informer. And hopefully it's going to interest a high school student or maybe 2 or 3 high school students so we can get the program going. The fact that we have a resolution for it means that if we're not successful this year, it's still on the books, so we can try next year and we can keep trying and trying until we get a favorable response. So I'm not discouraged. I'm hopeful. And the only other thing I want to add, and I said this at the safety meeting, just on Monday, one of my neighbors had an incident where she was wandering the street in her nightgown at 5 a.m. And 911 was called. And I have to say that the EMTs that came to her house were very, very professional. They were very sympathetic, and they treated her with respect. So I just want to commend the MSC and the EMTs that answered that call, and to all the EMTs and police and everybody who answered similar calls. So congratulations and thank you. Okay. That's it.
Madam Mayor, I have 2 questions. What's the disadvantage for going to an authority?
The disadvantage, well, I don't know how much. To go to an authority, we have to incorporate. Now, I don't know what's involved there. Actually, I will know more after our next meeting because we are going to discuss that. It just seems like there's a lot of advantages, but we have to talk about both the pros and cons. So I'll have more information after that meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. And then the tonnage, when they calculate the tonnage, is that based on everything that's put into recycling or actual material that can be recycled? Because oftentimes we put things in recycling that ultimately can't be recycled.
Right,
And I'm just
right.
curious how they calculate that.
Well, we have the recycling bins.
Mhm.
So everything is taken. But I believe they calculate for waste. I think it's 20% of the tonnage is automatically deducted for waste.
Okay,
Okay, and that's a state law based on state statistics.
okay,
But I also mentioned in my report that we have the problem with commercial versus residential. And a lot of the haulers are classifying waste from the apartments as commercial versus residential. But it's still considered recyclables. It's just in the allocation of it might be a result in a smaller grant if it's not classified, categorized correctly, but we still will get credit for that. So Does that answer your question?
It does, yes,
Okay.
yes. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
I still don't want to add, this month's Borough News has a big article about junior council people.
They seem to have an article just about every month. I
But I
know,
mean, for
I know, I
everybody
saw
else,
that.
you know a lot about it, but for everybody else, it's a bad thing.
I find it interesting every time we have something that's relevant, it seems to show up in the borough. You know, there's some article about something like that too, whatever we're talking about. So I don't know how you're planning that, Jamie, but you're doing a great job.
Thank
So.
you.
Jason, I have one thing to add to the HEROC committee report that I overlooked. We had a discussion too about the 125th anniversary celebration. And it's been decided that in the event of rain, that we're going to reschedule it for the 24th of August, 4 to 8 p.m.
Movie night. The same, it'll be
Same night as
part of movie night.
Okay.
But it'll occur before.
It'll be expanded.
Okay.
So
Any other questions?
What was the date again?
Saturday, I'm sorry, August 24th from 4 to 8 p.m.
Thank you.
All right, if there's nothing else, we'll go on to item 5, reports and correspondence. Our monthly investment report.
Included in your packets was the cash accounts and the monthly investment report. Last meeting I highlighted, and we're still on March for investments. We gained some money. I know that the mayor and myself have talked to Diane, as the mayor had brought up at the last meeting, to have an addition to our investments that talks about how, like, details the T-notes that we took out, the 6-month, 1 year, and 2 years. So Diane is working on that, and she will include that in the next workshop packet. So we can kind of see where we started, what it looks like today, and hopefully when we're at the end where it finishes at. So that will be included in the investment report.
If we can too, if we can include what we would have lost if we hadn't done this, just as a general calculation. Doesn't have to be super precise, but I'd just be curious to see what that delta is. If there's a way to figure that out, I'm not sure there is. It'd be good to know, like I said, you know, we did it and we know we're going to gain something from it, but it'd be good to see what we would have lost if we hadn't done that. So. Okay. Any questions? Monthly EIT and LST?
Monthly EIT and LST was included in your packets. Year to date, you can see 144,000 versus 2022, 132,000 for EIT, and LST 19,000 year to date. And at this time last year, we are at 12,000. I did have Diane check, as the solicitor brought up last meeting. These numbers seem to be higher, which we're definitely not complaining about, but we just want to make sure it's the borough's money. Year to date, she hasn't had any returns from Berkheimer, so normally she'll get an alert and Berkheimer will say, hey, we overcharged your account X, and they will take it back out, and then they'll put it in, if it would be Hatfield Township, Borough, which happens a lot. So she hasn't had anything year to date, but I brought it to her attention that she's going to keep her eye on it, she said sometimes it could be a couple months after. And so just to bring it to her attention, so she will keep her eye on it.
Any questions? All right, how about the monthly zoning hearing board application?
The monthly zoning hearing board application, just wanted to bring to your attention that 103 North Main Street, the zoning hearing board application for the request for a variance of section 27-1202. That would permit 103 North Main from a single family dwelling to 2 units. That hearing has been continued until May 31st at 7 p.m. in the council chambers. Sorry, no problem. And just also want to highlight that we did talk about at the planning commission meeting on Monday. Planning commission is neutral on the decision, but they did want to note that they are very happy how the property is looking, and that they are glad to see whatever it becomes, that it is progressing and it's becoming something that is good for our community. So they didn't have an opinion either way, single family versus if it would be rented. They are just extremely happy with the progress that the house is making.
Jamie, do you know if a lot of the neighbors came to that meeting that if they came to the zoning board meeting that was scheduled? I know it was very short, but do you know if a lot of
I was not at the meeting, Bob was there, but I believe just like a handful of residents attended. I know that some people had come in prior and we had told them that it was gonna be continued for May 31st. A couple of folks have called as well. So I do expect a turnout at the May 31st meeting.
Any questions? All right, how about our police department report?
Nothing really to add to that, except there's 40 hires start on Monday. So, we have internal training they need to do. And it's a street one, and we'll be going into academy, Saturday on coming Monday. So he's doing a ride along.
Any questions? All right, how about our fire department report?
There was no specific fire department report in the packets, but as always, budgets and attendance, if you have any specific questions, he'd be happy to answer them for you.
Butch, anything you want to comment on?
Numbers are weird again. We popped up in the 40s last or in March, but now we're back to Chinese for April. So people are finally getting their lunch systems and under control or what? Not having it roll out, but it's not right.
All right, any other questions? All right, how about our EMS?
The EMS report was located in your packets. We'll highlight that we had 13 zone calls out of 1,115 calls for the month of April for VMSC. That's less than 1%. We normally teeter between 1% and 2% of their total call volume for the month. Those calls were 8 were ALS or paramedic was on site. 2 were BLS, advanced EMTs, and 3 of those were BLS or basic EMTs. And I did let public safety know that we are trying to schedule a tour of VMSC. We're either looking at the end of May or sometime in June. So if you have any vacations planned, so please just shoot me an email, a text, and let me know so I don't pick those dates to meet with them. I know Chief was out of town at the beginning of May.
All right, any questions? Okay, how about Public Works?
Pretty much a typical day-to-day activities for Public Works for the month of May. A lot of things that we're happy to do, get back out in the street, get some road work done, finally able to get some blacktop. One thing I'll note, which wasn't in April's report, but it just happened yesterday. Hopefully nobody noticed. That's a good thing if you didn't. We were out in the middle of State Route 1003, Market, Union, Penn, replacing the manhole frames prior to PennDOT paving. So it was a stressful day, but we got it done.
All right, any questions for Steve? All right, if not, we'll go on to our engineering report.
The engineering report was included in your packets, not much update from the last report. I just want to highlight that we submitted the HOP for the utility work out on East and West Broad, and that Steve had a meeting with PennDOT and he had talked about the paving. You know, we talked previously about the paving, and we worked out, as you see, there's some restoration that took place on East Broad, along with that they are going to be paving out North Market and down Penn Ave to into the township. So Steve had a nice productive meeting with PennDOT. So we feel like we can work something out moving forward once that project is completed. Chad will be here at the town hall meeting, and he is planning on giving a detailed update about the utility replacement project. I know a lot of residents want to see that project started, and we'll explain the project, we'll explain the detours, we'll explain why we pushed it off of the grant funds. So he is here to talk about that. He's also going to highlight the private sewer lateral replacement project that we've done previously on Orchard and East School, because we're going to offer that to residents on North Main as well with using the Borough camera and televising. So they'll highlight all of that on May 10th at the town hall. There wasn't any subdivision or land development updates, but I did want to note that on 23 North Main Street, where it says sketch plan, one building contains 6 units while the other building contains 4 units is what it should say. And that sketch plan is currently under review from our consultants.
Any questions? If not, zoning officer, building code, property maintenance report.
So the zoning officer building code report was in your packets this evening. I will just highlight resale inspections, permits are up. We're having a lot of UNOs. The notice of violations are still out there for 302 West Broad. They are supposed to have a dumpster either on site last week or the beginning of this week to clean up the property. That's what they've been in communication with Bob. And I've seen a couple emails back and forth about 304 Union Street, which is Hatfield Mart and the collection bins. So I know that the property owner is aware of the ordinance and is communicating with Bob to come into compliance.
Is there any ETA on that? Because we've talked about it a couple of months now.
Yeah, the emails that they were saying, we're just trying to say this was a nonprofit, and this is, Bob just says, this is our ordinance, and I think they finally come to a resolution. They kept sending basically examples of who they give their product to and those things. I don't know if they necessarily understood it's just the bin's not allowed in that zoning district.
Mm.
It has nothing to do with who the bin is, that's just not where it's allowed.
Any questions? Fire marshal, fire safety?
The fire marshal report was in your packets. We're continuing to collect 2023 dues for fire safety inspections, and we are rescheduling 2022 inspections that did not pass, and we continue to work through that process. But very proud that we are almost complete the 2022 inspections, which have gone prior to COVID. So we're finally caught up. I know that was a little extra time that code had to spend here in the borough, a little extra funds that we had to put out, but well worth it to get caught up and everybody on schedule for fire safety inspections.
All right. I don't say anything for pool advisory, but do we have any updates?
I have not had any updates, and I believe Katie reached out and she didn't receive an update yet.
Okay. So I'm not gonna get a request to ask my wife to be on it?
Not that I'm aware of, but
Okay.
never know.
Sen, if you're listening, no. Okay. Yeah, I know. If she was, I'd get a phone call saying. All right, let's go on to item 6, manager's report.
In my report that I provided in the packets, there's not many changes from our report from 2 weeks ago. I did want to highlight the MTF crosswalk. We had talked about it in public safety, and that's the crosswalk that is at Vinnie's. So out front, we're talking about the crosswalk at Mom's, but the crosswalk at Vinnie's was originally supposed to go kind of mid-block crosswalk right in front of Vinnie's to connect on the other side of West Broad. When we submitted the HOP permit, PennDOT rejected that permit because they don't like mid-block crosswalks. They want to see that crosswalk relocated at Tomlinson Avenue at that intersection to cross. During the public safety committee meeting tonight, we did talk about, and I've talked about Lieutenant multiple times, of the issue of speeding on that. And now this just moves that crosswalk up 20, 30 more feet closer to where you drop down to 25 from the township. So those are things we have to take into consideration. I know we had talked a few years ago of maybe sidewalks, you know, on that township side down by Rosenberger's, where you would cross now more at, you know, Elroy and Koppel instead of down in the borough. So these are all things that we'll work with our engineer and take that back to our engineer. But just so you're aware that mid-block cross did not go through on the HOP permit. Again, this project is probably a 2025 project. It was going to be 2024. We're not going to dig up the road and put a crosswalk in when we're doing utility replacement project there. So you still have a while to figure it out, but just had to let everybody know that we're going to have to do some realigning or some other brainstorming with the grant opportunity and see what the grant will cover.
I know we also talked about bumping out the roads to make that crossing shorter. That was an option we discussed before. But I don't know how the rest of council feels, but I remember when we talked about it a while back, and I forget if it was this council group or the previous group. Part of the concern and why we wanted it to be mid-block was because of the speed there. So even if we shorten the distance, it doesn't fix the speed issue of people coming around there. So I know they don't prefer it. Is there any way that we can convince them otherwise by presenting it as a safety concern? And kind of walking through it that way. I understand that they don't prefer it, but I would rather not have kids, darting across the street because people are being crazy drivers. So.
Yeah, I believe that that's something that Anton and us can, work through. We can go back to them and say, because of X, Y, and Z and speeding, this is why it was placed there. That's just their first initial review was they don't like it because they don't like the block crosswalk. So he came to me and just told me when we had our consultant meeting a few weeks ago, and I said, I don't have any objections to Tomlinson Avenue besides speeding. Just the location of moving it up. That's my only concern.
Okay.
So
I mean, if council
still an open
agrees,
conversation.
yeah, if council agrees, I think we should push that because to me, that's a big safety concern. If you guys all agree with, I think we should really push that.
I have another question in relation to that. Is it possible to look at, is there maybe a grant out there for putting in a flasher signal at that corner for the crosswalk along with currently there's a speed sign, electronic speed sign on the telephone pole a little further down the street, but is it possible to get a combination speed sign and the flasher unit on that corner for the cars coming in off of 40-foot road?
That was part of the proposal, wasn't it? We were gonna
Yeah,
put flashes
and
on
I
either
know we
end.
talked about, I want to say we talked about additional signs everywhere. It's basically those type of signs, anything like even up as soon as you cross over Coppell, like even right there immediately, like warning, warning, warning. But maybe it was just like, I don't know how people pay attention, but it doesn't mean we wouldn't do it. I think that was part of the conversation. It's just like sometimes people just become sign blind. I don't know another word to say it.
No, I think
It was part of it, so I will definitely reiterate signage prior to the crosswalk.
Yeah.
The crosswalk will have like the mast arm with flashing, same as like the Main Street in Lansdale. It'll be that same, but I get when you're coming around that little bend.
If there's no further questions, keep going, Madam Manager.
That was really all I wanted to highlight from my report. If you have any additional questions about any of the other items that I highlighted this evening.
Sounds like there are no other questions. All right, if not, we'll go on to item 7, new business and discussion items. The first one, resolution 2023-05, recognizing National Police Week.
This resolution is an annual resolution honoring National Police Week, which will occur May 15th through May 21st, and it's on for consideration as an action item this evening.
All right. So no questions, we'll go on to item B, resolution 2023-06, recognizing National EMS Week.
This resolution is an annual resolution honoring National EMS Week, and it is from May 21st through the 27th of this month, and it's on for consideration as an action item this evening.
Item C, resolution 2023-07, recognition of Public Works Week.
This is an annual resolution that Hatfield Borough has done in the past to recognize our public works and recognize Public Works Week. In May this month, it's the 21st through the 27th, and it's on for consideration as an action item this evening.
And I don't recall reading in it, but does Steve have to wear like a crown during that week while he's out working?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good.
It's like a
good.
special call.
Yeah.
No, they're just very thankful that we do things for them. They're very appreciative, and we always get them a little something started.
Any questions on this? If not, we'll go to item E, HUROC appointment.
Thank you, Mr. D.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Also come out of order.
You're right, you're right. No, I crossed it out here and we didn't talk about it, so apologies. Item D, resolution 2023-08, the closure of certain borough roads.
This resolution is to close certain borough roads, specifically the closure of Cherry Street and Union Street in the borough for the 125th anniversary on June 17th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. The event is from 12 to 4. And this is on for consideration as an action item.
Now, how about item E, the HERC appointment?
The Borough appointment was, Vice President Gerard spoke about during, his update. This is to appoint Johnny Costanza, who is from Razor Sharp Barber Shop. And as, Vice President Gerard said, HERC has made that recommendation to appoint him to fill the vacant term of Mr. Weimer.
How
That's
long,
on for consideration.
how long have they been in the borough? It's a long time.
Yes, yeah.
Larry,
I
our
don't
resident
know.
It
historian.
used to be another,
It was
well, I know it was-
Dapper Dan was there
Yeah.
previously,
yeah,
so I think he's probably
6,
been
7
there,
years.
yeah, maybe about 5 or 6 years, something like that.
yeah.
All right, item F, the SEPTA lease.
Yeah, I was gonna be, no, I was gonna be both of them.
All right, let me just point out a few things. You've seen this at the least before. It's almost done. They're getting anxious, so we want to get all of our issues handled before we, before they take action on it, and then we'll have to take action on it. It basically provides a number of years of credits for work we're going to have to do at the station to bring it, the station building, to bring it up to usability and readability or something like that. There's one other piece that you need to know about, although it's very unlikely that this will happen. The lease, they can't sell it to us because they owe a duty to the federal government with regard to the railroad. So the lease is subject to the fact that we would have to put this in any sublease to a tenant, that if they come back to us and say, whoa, we need it, you know, for railroads, we get to take it back. But it is a fairly lengthy lease, and I believe we've agreed on all the major terms. So I think I had suggested they started June or July, because I want to get all the empty spaces filled in with numbers, so that, you know, we can go forward. But Jamie's been doing the direct negotiations, so you can take over.
Yeah, the only things I wanted to really highlight, it's a typical lease. We've had something similar in the past, and then COVID came up, Kate's reviewed it, we've gone back with SEPTA a couple times, Budget Finance and Labor has seen it a lot. What we really want to pay attention to is page 9, because those are our rent credits that we are going to be getting. So that talks about our first, as Kate said, that's the first 3 years rent free, and then we're going to discounted rent for maintenance that we'd be doing at the property. What the Budget Finance and Labor Committee is eventually looking into and council will consider is what we're going to do after we have this lease. This is just the first step to our redevelopment of what that property is going to look like in the future and how we can bring a business to the borough. So we can't do any of that until we sign a lease with SEPTA. So they're very anxious, as Kate said. You know, myself, Kate, and Budget Finance and Labor are anxious to kind of get the process going so we can take the next step, and council can take the next step of talking to a consultant or whatever direction we would want to go, or an engineer, to see what we can make that property become and get a tenant in there.
From the last budget, labor and finance meeting, there was a question on the maintenance fee, the $6,400 a year. Was that clarified?
Yeah, I just printed Casey's email because I thought it'd be easier if I could just read it. She wrote, I had asked about the page 7 and the lease, and it states, you know, how it's read and with the credits. And she wrote, I can confirm the credit for maintenance is included in years 1 through 10, the $14,425.29. She said she will make sure the wording is fixed on page 8 because it was a little confusing. I had highlighted that. When it talks about less rent, the rent credit, like it didn't seem like that was included in there. She said year 1 through 3 is a rent abatement, which means you'll not be paying rent. The rent credit for improvement starts in year 4 through 10, which is $55,477. And then she wrote, you know, that's divided by 7, so you're getting the 7,925 plus the 6,500, I'm rounding numbers, which gets you to the 14,425.
Essentially on the maintenance, that's a credit to us.
Correct.
We're gonna be responsible for the maintenance, so they're giving us a credit against rent due for the fact that we're doing the maintenance.
Right. Yeah, no, there was, the wording was confusing because it sounded like the 6,500 should be on top of the 14,000.
Right.
So, but she's clarified that's part of the 14,000.
She has, and she said, she agreed that the wording, when she had responded to Kate and I, that she agreed that the wording seemed confusing and she was going to fix it.
Okay.
They also clarified, I think we talked on page 9, all sums of money, you know, we were talking about, what does that mean? And it's like the rent due,
Mhm.
like that includes the rent that would be.
Okay, okay.
And
So it wasn't,
I did ask them how they were going to get this approved. In my experience, which was here, they get it approved at a SEPTA board meeting. So I really don't want you to approve it until all the blanks are filled in. But I think we have to be ready to go whenever they tell us that they've approved it. Okay, we'll approve it too, you know? Or vice versa. If she tells me, oh, you guys have to approve it first, it'll be, okay, fine. Still get a couple little blanks here and there, fill the blanks in, and then we'll put it on Borough Council's agenda to approve it. But the reason that I asked for it to be on for tonight is if anybody's got issues or problems with it, now's the time to raise them so we can fix them before we're under the gun to get it approved.
Mhm. Yeah, I know I had those questions. Those are the only questions I had. Rich, I don't know if you had anything
I
else.
didn't have anything else.
Okay. But Budget, Labor and Finance did agree with it. We just want to clarify those few details. I was hoping that we could have got $6,500 more, but it is what it is. But yeah, no, we definitely want to go, we recommend going forward with it to the council. The alternatives aren't good if they rent that out to someone else. We already know that there's other people that want to use it as a dumping ground. So we definitely want to recommend it to the council. And then obviously, like Jamie said, it's part of our development strategy in that area. So we really want to, be able to have that property.
And the borough has used the parking lot in the past for public events.
Yeah. So is there any questions from council or the mayor on it?
Do we currently have any maintenance or upkeep with that property? With landscaping or snow removal or anything?
We cut the grass there. We take care of like any trimming of trees, flower beds, stuff like that. We have done snow removal since not last year. Previous years, we've done snow removal. It's, if we have a tenant in there, we try to have the tenant take care of the snow removal themselves.
And I guess that could be worked into a sublease as well, as far as who would be responsible for that.
Right.
Do you think 6,500 is a reasonable amount to cover a year's worth of maintenance?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. I don't know if that's even
Yeah.
negotiable or not, but it's good to know that
Yeah.
that should be reasonable.
And I think from our conversations and from Budget, Labor and Finance and asking SEPTA, the numbers that are given are about as good as they're going to get. So, because one of the things we looked at with the property, well, we all did the tour. I don't know if you were there or not. There was a question about the $55,000 and that being enough to actually renovate it for somebody. And we kind of feel like it's not, but we did go back and ask for more funds because of that. And Steve put a report together saying, here's how much we really think it is. And they said, no, that's all you're going to get. So, yeah.
And that's probably because the other bidder for the lease for the warehousing space was probably willing to accept this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have competition that we have to worry about.
So, like I said, the alternative is not good for us. I think we, and like I said, I think it fits our strategy going forward to have that space as well. So,
Once we get a tenant, once it's fixed up and we get a tenant, are we gonna be able to charge rent to the tenant enough to cover what we're gonna be paying to SEPTA as well as money for us?
Yes, I think that's the idea is to have them pay rent to us. Whether we make money or don't make money on the deal, SEPTA doesn't have anything to do with it. They said they don't want to know or don't care.
Okay.
So, but yes, that is the plan. And if you work with a consultant or an engineer, whatever council decides, a lot of times they'll bring you a tenant and they'll work out all those details for you. They'll find somebody, they'll find a developer, they'll find somebody to bring that in for you, or they'll work for grants or something, so you can supplement also a little bit from like what you're paying to bring more in or get grant money.
We did this once before with the, chimney people, salters.
Yeah.
Right, so we know it's possible to rent it. It's not in great shape, but it's possible to rent it. It's got character and it's in a nice spot and it's got parking.
Mhm.
So all those things make it rentable. Hopefully we'll be able to get a good tenant, make a little money on it.
I have one other question in relation to that. The utilities in there, the electricity or whatever heat, whether it's gas heat, whatever. Would that be included in the rental price or would that be paid separately by whoever winds up leasing the place?
Previously, the tenants paid a separate electric bill. So if, I know Salters got billed for their electric or Wood Burners got billed because Wood Burners had an agreement with SEPTA directly. So, the last tenant we had paid their own electric bill and took care of their own utilities.
And that's kind of normal, I think, in commercial leases today. You know, the tenant pays that kind of thing.
All right, so it sounds like council's ready to go once we get everything finalized, so.
Okay, let them know that we're ready, everybody, we're ready to go.
Right, just fill in the blanks and clean it up, because she said she was gonna need a
Right.
clean copy, and I didn't get that.
Okay, and
Okay.
I just can't cancel any client to sign something that has blanks in it.
Right.
I mean, I just can't. So Jamie, why don't you talk to her, tell her we're ready to go, just finish, get us a final product and we'll put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Cool, thank you. I know we've been going back and forth with this for a while, so. All right, item G, the fireworks ordinance, regulating use of commercial and display fireworks.
All right, so the state law has changed. Used to be Pennsylvania, you couldn't buy fireworks in Pennsylvania. And then that changed and we could buy fireworks in Pennsylvania. But you couldn't use the fireworks in Pennsylvania. So now the law has changed and you're allowed to use fireworks, the kind that you shoot off in the air, they're called rockets.
Yeah.
Right.
I was gonna ask, so because you can buy stuff that's on the ground and
Roman
fizzles,
candles,
yeah,
all that.
but is the stuff that shoots in the air, is that how it's
Right,
defined between the two?
Right,
Okay.
so here's where we are on this. The borough's housing is so close together that it is possible that there is no place that is not 300 feet from a house. Okay,
Talk.
so I believe that it is reasonable, possible for us to ban fireworks. Now, when we ban fireworks, we're only banning those projecting fireworks. We're not banning sparklers or little things like that you might, want to have around your house for the 4th of July or something like that. So we've been through a couple iterations of the ordinance. And tonight we heard from our representatives from police and fire. And we think that probably the safest way to do it is probably to ban the projectile ordinances and continue to allow sparklers and things like that. So the way we do this is we pass an ordinance which uses the statewide definitions of those things. It says these are okay and these are not. And that way they would be banned. An interesting side note, which the lieutenant pointed out, and I hadn't noticed when I reviewed the state law against the draft. The chicken hen houses, if we pass that ordinance, you gotta be between 150 and 300 feet from them too. So even if you had an acre lot, but you had some chickens on it and a hen house and you stuck it at the end of your yard, you might not be 150 feet from the hen house at the same time you're 300 feet from your neighbor. So I mean, I think it's probably rational to believe that there's no really safe place in the borough to set off fireworks. We're talking about people like us setting off fireworks. We're not talking about a professional display or something like that. So I'm gonna go back and rewrite the ordinance. And it'll be different than the one that was in your packet. And we're gonna try to get this done quickly so that everybody knows the score when the 4th of July comes around. Okay?
So question, so we did confirm, or we have confirmed that there is no place in the borough that you could set it off based on the current regulations, the distance.
Well, we didn't go out and measure everything. But I think it's easy to see that the borough is so tight that it's unlikely that there's a place where it's 300 feet from an occupied house. Yeah,
And it's-
except when our property, and we banned it on our property.
Mhm.
You know, so I think that we're within our rights as a local government to ban it.
Yeah.
And now, if you have a township, you might not have that situation. Or if you have larger properties or things like that.
Mhm.
And of course, the borough could sponsor or allow some community group to sponsor fireworks in a park if the park was big enough. It would say. As Lansdale, I think that's great.
Okay. And how is this? So if we were to ban it completely in the borough, that would make our ordinance different from the townships.
Not exactly. The township's
Okay.
ordinance, at least the one I looked at online, they have theirs posted as we do. Township's ordinance bans fireworks in public parks. Period. End of story. I do not think it's been updated since the state law changed with regard to buying, selling, and using fireworks.
Okay.
So, they don't allow them in their public parks, but they don't say anything about elsewhere.
Okay.
So it is possible that somebody in the township would set off fireworks in their backyard. But they also have to be 300 feet from an occupied structure, and they gotta be 150 to 300 feet from a hen house.
Mhm.
So,
I'm just curious if it does sound like if they stick with the distance, the 300 feet, then if we ban it, then there's a difference between what we're specifying versus them. So.
right, and they haven't done anything to update their ordinance, so
Okay.
we may have to look at ours again.
Okay.
Right now, they just ban it in public parks. That's the way I read the ordinance.
Okay. And then, is it allowable, based on the ordinances, if a professional company is hired to come in and do that, does that change any of the requirements, like distance from houses or anything like that?
Yes, I think that doesn't apply to them. You probably have to, I don't know, maybe put permits in or something like that.
Because they're considered professionals and,
Right.
okay,
This is for consumers, is what we're talking about.
Okay.
Like regular people, like us, neighbors, right? But if you wanted to have a split display, I did put in here because it was in a previous ordinance that we had, that the manager can approve it. I was thinking if you decide to have a fireworks display at a park, you could approve that.
Mhm.
But otherwise, we don't want people running out into the park shooting off fireworks, or worse yet, shooting them off from their house, not knowing whether there's people in the park or not. Because these are fire hazards and they can cause injury. People get hurt. And I'm talking about projectile fireworks, not sparklers.
Right.
Okay,
I think projectile is a great way to classify the difference, so. Yeah.
right. The state law has definitions, which I will put into the ordinance, but I think the word projectile explains it better so that people understand.
So just to clarify, so your recommendation is that we ban it throughout the borough, or we stick with the distances that are specified?
My recommendation, and that's based on my discussions with the police and fire, is that we ban it. Because I think it's unlikely that there's any place in the borough that you're 300 feet from an occupied structure. Except a public park, and you can allow it in public parks by permission, and presumably you'd be smart enough to do it with a professional or something, right? Somebody knew what they were doing.
Lieutenant Jane, how much of a problem do we typically have in the borough with fireworks? Just out of curiosity. Yeah.
It's not unusual for 4th of July or New Year's Eve. Those typical holidays, we'll see them. Sitting there always originating from the borough, the borough calls that we get, you probably over a weekend, it's like a 4th of July weekend. You have up to maybe 24 people calling saying that they're hearing fireworks or seeing fireworks. The issue comes when we try to track down the origin of,
Right.
as I said during the public safety meeting, you know, all we can certainly, whatever we can see in plain view is one thing, but we don't have legal rights to go try to get backyards. See things. Rely on the information that we get, we can knock on doors.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when I see it, I can't tell if it's the borough or the township sometimes, so that's why I was curious.
And even if it's coming from the borough, there is an aerial one such as Rowan candles, bottle rockets, or the smaller consumer fireworks.
Mhm.
If they're high enough up enough that they could be coming.
You
from
can't
the
tell,
borough.
yeah.
And the problem could be, you're sitting in your backyard, you know, on your back patio or something, somebody else shoots one off. And it lands in your backyard,
Mhm.
you know, and it could be a danger to you or to your house or whatever. And you have no idea where it came from. So, I mean, I think probably, we're gonna get them. I think it's probably safest to ban, discourage them in the borough. And then, the other thing that may come into play is the timing. I know the mayor was concerned about, you know, the noise, so except on New Year's Eve, when people set them off around midnight. If you wake up at 4 a.m. and your neighbor's setting off fireworks, that could also be a disorderly conduct.
Or we could be go in a different direction on
Right.
creating unreasonable noise. We could certainly handle it through her. Okay, that's the progress to that. One thing I did note is try to educate people before we start citing them. So. First, talk about that one person. And that's. Actually.
But James just mentioned disturbing the peace. I think that's right. That's another way that the noise can be handled, you know, whether it's fireworks or not, but fireworks do make noise.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll get you another draft to look at.
Okay.
In relation to that, quick question, would that also include people who buy M30s and M80s? And set them off?
That's a good question. I'm gonna ask the lieutenant that. Is it, and I don't know them well enough. Is that, how does that work with the state definition?
Right, so. Don't believe you can have MPDs, it depends on the amount of powder that's in. Also part of it, my understanding that it's, I think it's also 15 milligrams, and I'm trying to figure that out here. There is some whole pyrotechnics code out there that does do its division between what the professionals would do and what consumer fireworks are. I think that's up to 50 milligrams, so it would depend on what that actual ordinance has.
Yeah, because they're not aerial, but you just set them off from the ground, but you could hear them for blocks and blocks away.
And consumer fireworks are actually, the definition is that it's explosive. The packets you see that are the fireworks with sparklers and the little batteries that you put in the driveway, and they kind of shoot up a little bit, but they stay earthbound. By definition, it shouldn't be considered as fireworks. And I think that's a little bit of the terminology is we're getting hung up on that as far as what's considered. And the 80s, and it's just going to depend on what that power is.
I think that might fit under the definition because the definition I'm reading from the state law. Any combustible or explosive composition or any substance or combination of substances which is intended to produce visible or audible effects by combustion. It's supposed to be suitable for the public. And then there are all regulations dealing with it, but it seems to me that those would certainly be combustible or explosive.
Well, basically, an M80 is basically a quarter of a stick of dynamite.
Right,
That's what it is.
right. I remember when I was a kid, somebody blew up our mailbox with cherry bomb is what
Yeah.
it was called. I don't know if it was one of them or not.
It's something similar, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, certainly could be dangerous if people are standing around. That's the problem. And then in the borough, because we all live so close together, it's possible you could be sitting in your backyard. Somebody else sets one off and it could land in your backyard next to your house.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, I remember when the Eagles and Phillies, they won championships and people were setting off fireworks, and then all of a sudden you hear this tremendous boom, which, that's not a regular firework. It had to be something else. So you get that too.
Right. And some of the southern states sell more of those things than we do in Pennsylvania. So you see people go back home with them.
Yeah, we drive through North Carolina every year and there's huge stands. I mean, just blocks and blocks of people selling
Exactly.
fireworks, so.
And they allow much more firepower, if you will, than we do.
All right, so we're gonna table that until you get it revised. So what does council think? Does council agree that, of just banning it in general in the borough?
I would say yes. Yeah.
Sounds good.
So I work on, thanks.
All right, any other questions? If not, we'll go on to old business. Ordinance number 550 chicken, amending chapters 2 and chapters 27. Stevens?
We had the ordinance for you to look at in the last 2 weeks, and I guess we're open to additional discussion if you had any further thoughts on it.
I believe the planning commission on Monday night wanted me to highlight that one member would prefer the number of chickens to be 3 or 6, but the majority of the planning commission would like to keep the number at 6. And that they wanted you to consider that on page 3, how it said basically removing roosters, that it says 10 days, would you consider lowering that to 7 days instead of 10 days for removal if they were in violation of the ordinance? So those were their 2 comments that they had about this ordinance. And it has been advertised, the copy of the advertisements, and it's on for a public hearing on the May 17th meeting.
Either one of those changes, that wouldn't constitute us having to re-advertise it, would it?
Right, moving from 7 days to 10 days, I don't think is a major change. What was the other one?
Number of
Just
chickens.
one,
Oh, just.
just one planning commission member would rather have, see 3
Fewer-
chickens than
fewer
6.
Right.
But the property size still stays the same, right?
Yep.
10,000 square,
Right.
okay.
They're okay with everything.
I think you can make both of those changes at the hearing without having to react.
Okay.
Because basically the advertisement says, look, we're thinking of permitting chickens under certain circumstances. So if somebody comes in and questions the circumstances, they should come and look, at the ordinance. The ad says that, come look at the ordinance. I think you can make either of those changes without a big deal.
Okay.
And in fact, maybe if people see the ad, they'll have more opinions about, chickens. I know the Borough did very well when you did your survey. People want chickens. They want them. So, at least people who answered the survey, yeah.
I just remember from the B ordinance, I think the next week there, in 2 weeks, there'll be a lot of discussion around the specifics, property size, number of chickens, yada, yada. So
Right.
knowing that we can make those changes at the last minute without,
Right, they don't
Okay.
sound like major changes to me.
okay. All right. Any other questions? All right, then our next meeting will get interesting, so. Any other questions before we get to our action items? All right, if not, we'll get to number 9, action items. First one, motion to consider resolution 2023-05, recognizing National Police Week.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilwoman Cresser, a second from Councilman Fagan. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. Item B, motion to consider resolution 2023-06, recognizing National EMS Week.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilwoman Cresser, a second from Councilman Gerard. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. Item C, motion to consider resolution 2023-07, recognizing Public Works Week.
So moved.
I got a motion from Councilman Fagan, a second from Councilwoman Cresser. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. Item D, sorry, I'm getting confused by D and E today for some reason. Motion to consider resolution 2023-08, authorizing the closure of certain borough roads for the 125th anniversary.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilwoman Cresser, a second from Councilman Gerard. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. All right, item E, motion to consider appointing Johnny Costanza, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, to fill the HUROC position for the vacancy for the term to expire on December 31st, 2024.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilwoman Cresser, a second from Councilman Gerard. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. I'm assuming that we have some personnel litigation real estate.
Yes, so we executive session.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn for executive session?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.